Once you confirm, that very rarely occurs. So here's, I mean, I'm watching this like a hawk. Basically,
Yeah.
do we close today above or below 19,400? And right now, it looks like a game time decision. So I think that right now the market has been pricing in that 75 basis point rate hike. And I think that's why we saw that volatility. Initially, the markets were kind of around that 50 basis points. Then we saw the
Yeah.
CPI data last week, and the market really reacted and said, oh boy, now it's definitely 75. So that's
Yeah.
what the market's pricing in right now. I think what the important thing to recognize is that 75 is what the market's pricing in, but what the market will move on Wednesday is going to be what the Fed guides going forward. Are they going to say, okay,
Sure.
we're going to stay the course and raise another 75 at the next meeting? Or are they going to say, hey, we might be a little bit more dovish here. Maybe we're going to start to wait and see what the outcome economically is going to be. Yeah, so I do think there's a little bit more downside, but with the downside comes amazing opportunity for swing traders, for kind of shorter term
Yeah.
position traders. And so one thing I'd love to show is the chart here of Meta. And one of the levels I've isolated down, there's a huge support level around this 133, 132, and all the way up to about 135. And you can see, again, pivot point here, pivot point right here, all the way back here. So as you see, Meta's had this massive decline. Number one, that gets my attention. I say, okay, Meta may be on sale. Maybe the kind of the emotion is getting too crazy on it. And then I look for those technical levels. So I think the point being here is that, you know, again, who knows where we are December 31st, but if in the next 2 weeks we were to slam into this level on Meta, I would absolutely be saying pick some up, buy a little bit, maybe not a ton, but just dip the toe in the water. And I think there's a lot of tech stocks like this out there that have just been crushed. I mean, your list was very accurate. I mean, AMD, NVIDIA, I mean, all of these type names. In fact, let me go to NVIDIA here real quick and look at NVIDIA's level. It's not that far away from epic support where this consolidation sideways action was going. That's going to be huge support at 120 bucks. So it's maybe a little bit more downside. And then I think you start to see some really interesting opportunities into kind of maybe the October, November period. One of the things that strikes me is a trend line here. I mean, look at this trend line sloping down. So if you're someone who wants to be bullish on Twitter, you need to see a break of this trend line, because what you'll see here is every time it hits the trend line, it gets pounded to the downside.
Right.
And then it goes back and pounded again. So until that breaks, be very careful. But if it does break, then you have a trend line break, a trend break, and you actually could see some upside. And just to talk briefly about NVIDIA, and we talked about Meta before, you notice how as these stocks come into these levels, these technical levels, it's almost a trigger that could tell us that we could be looking at that coinciding with a Fed pivot. And so again, that's not telling us when that's going to happen, but when those levels hit, why would technology bounce, guys? Ask yourself that question. Why would tech have a big bounce? The answer is the dollar would have to be coming in. Interest rates would be coming in. How would that happen? Fed pivot. Yeah, so the big thing to recognize on Bitcoin here is that you basically have been hovering just above or just below the 2017 high. So I'm going to bring up a trend line here, and we're going to go all the way back to those 2017 highs and put in this line here. And you can see that the market has just been hammering on this over and over again since June, so many times. Now the kicker is, and you can see Bitcoin's actually come back amazingly well today, but what we saw yesterday was a close below. And what you look for here is a secondary close below the low of the first candle that closed below. And I know that sounds complex, but basically what needs to happen here is you're looking to see, does Bitcoin today close below the low of yesterday? If so, that's what we call confirmation of a breakdown. Now, if you look here, never happened. If we go over here, never happened, never happened, never happened. So for me, it's the difference maker between a confirmation signal telling us that it's a real breakdown versus a lot of games that algos play to stop people out. So you'll see a close below a level because then shorts pile on board and then people stop out of their long positions, and then the institutional algos rip it the other way. Once you confirm, that very rarely occurs. So here's, I mean, I'm watching this like a hawk. Basically, do we close today above or below 19,400? And right now it looks like a game time decision. Yeah, so Ethereum, we did see that kind of sell off after the merge right here. It has come down, but it's, in all fairness, it's still holding one of my key levels that I'm following, this 1250 level. And again, you got very, very close to it in the overnight before we reversed now. So basically, I would be looking for that level to hold. If that holds, you could see Ethereum start to push up. Here's a beautiful trend line where it's going to be. If we push up, you'll see resistance right there. If it gets through that, then you could be looking at the 200 moving average, which is basically right around this double top right here. I'm in the camp where you might bounce back to this trend line, but I do still think there's more downside to go in the near term or over the next couple weeks, at least retesting the double bottom here. Yeah, so in a weird way, and maybe this is from my stock background, but I'm not that worried about it. In fact, I actually kind of want it just to get it done with. Gary Gensler, get your butt in here, give us these rules, and let Ethereum figure it out. Because again, I mean, if we all want Bitcoin to hit $500,000 or $1 million, the only way that's happening, you know, you could say, I want so many people to adopt it around the world. Fine, but when you only have $10,000 or $1,000 in some of these other countries, it's going to be hard to drive Bitcoin or Ethereum up to crazy levels. What do you need? You need big institutional money. And big institutional money is not touching these things with a 10-foot pole until they figure out the rules. And think about what a security is. A security reports earnings, okay, but they have to file reporting. They have to abide by strict regulations. They can't do shady things. They get in trouble for that. I mean, is it really that bad? I mean, maybe it is, but at least it gives you clarity. And I think that's so important. So like, you know what, if Ethereum is a security, tell us. Let them figure it out. Let them file the proper paperwork, and then let's freaking buy it and watch it run up, because it's going to go when that happens. I'm in the camp that it's probably late Q4 or Q1 of 2023 in terms of the bottom. And the main reason there is that, you know, I don't think Bitcoin is ready, or the rest of the coins, to really shrug off risk assets. And I still think that you're going to see the economy slip into a recession. The market is going to, or investors are going to worry that we can't get out of that recession without the Fed printing, which they won't do until it gets really, really bad. And that's going to cause a sell-off in stocks and really draw down. And then I think, unfortunately, that just draws down cryptocurrency as well. So again, there's going to be two pivot points, right? One is where it decouples, where crypto decouples, Bitcoin decouples, or the other one would be when the stock market finally bottoms, then you get a bottom. And again, I just don't see the stock market bottoming until 2023.